Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Arden Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at three books from the Legal Action Group and Arden Chambers. Arden Chambers have taken on the mantle of producing new editions of three books. Homelessness and Allocations, which I have reviewed separately. The one I'm looking at the moment is Quiet Enjoyment, that's a protection from rogue landlords, and I'm an 8th edition. And there's also another one, Manual of Housing Law, which I should be dealing with separately. What I'm looking at the moment is Quiet Enjoyment. We've reviewed this book before, and as I say, it's one of the trilogy of books which have come out in the summer of 2017. This one's an important book because it's looking at the behaviour of landlords at a time when there are a lot of vulnerable people out there. They can't afford to buy properties, so they have to become tenants. And of course there are unscrupulous people around, and they will use whatever they can sometimes to treat the tenants in the wrong way. So this book is very, very helpful. This one is called Quiet Enjoyment. Excuse me. It's been written by Andrew Arden, Queen's Counsel, and it's also got two other people involved who will be known to many of you, Robert Brown and Sam Madge-Wyld. The book's available as a printed book, this one here, which we'll look at in a minute. It's also available as an ebook, and you can get hold of updates from the ebook series from the lag.org.uk/ebooks website. Now, Elizabeth and I have given a title for our book review of this book, An Urgently Needed New Edition, as matters continue to go from bad to worse in the housing market. And I say that without any sense of melodrama, because things are not as good as they should be at the moment. As I've said, the reason partly is because there is a real squeeze on property availability. This is the book. It's a blue cover. It's not as heavy as some of the other books. There's the spine, and then there's the back. You can see some information at the back if I just leave it up like that. There's the Arden Chambers logo at the front. You can see a shaded area, which is where the appendices are. They start running from page 263. The book has a total of 415 odd pages, 20 odd pages. The index at the back is by paragraph numbering. It's not a big index, but it's good enough. You should be able to find what you're looking for pretty easily. There's the start of the index. Then you have the shaded area, which is the appendices, and then at the front you've got a nice bit of basic biographical information of the authors of this work. Then you've got the Quiet Enjoyment title. Then you've got all the blurb about how to find it on the through the ebook and everything else. Then you've got a detailed preface which applies to all three books. That's the Homeless and Allocations, Quiet Enjoyment, and the Housing Law Manual. And it's been written by Arden, and he sets out in here in May 2017 the purpose of this particular book. And again, the law is stated predominantly at the 30th of April 2017. And you can see the book runs through the contents section. Then you've got cases, a lot of cases, then statutes, inevitably some statutory instruments. Then you've got, after that, you've got a little bit of European legislation, not very much, just a little bit. Then you've got very useful abbreviations, always of some help, I think, when you're dealing with this area. And then after that, you get into the chapters. This one starts off with unlawful eviction. You see the structure. You've got a useful index for the actual chapter at the beginning. So you should find things very easily. And I've found lag books to be very helpful. They're in most courts. They should be in every CAB office, and they should be on the desks of every local authority and housing association. They're not, but they should be. There's the start of it, and you can see how there's an introduction, and then civil causes of action and so on. It runs through that way. So say it runs to 400 odd pages. Now, what do we say about the book? As I say, it's in this series with Homeless and Allocations as well, which I've also reviewed, and the other one I've reviewed. Well, what do we say about this? We say this. We reviewed this excellent book before, so we've been here before, and we've got no hesitation in restating our admiration for the way in which the authors have explained occupiers' rights, because they do it in, I think, the easiest way possible. And I'll make a comment straight away. This book is for people who may well be unrepresented, and I'm sure they will find it of some help, even though, frankly, it is confusing and it must be very difficult, especially if one is in an emotional turmoil about one's living arrangements. You can understand, but I do think this book helps litigants in person as well. This is the 8th edition that we're looking at today. It's a first-class collaboration between the Legal Action Group, which is the Access to Justice charity, and to Arden Chambers in London. And it's one of the 3 books which I've indicated I'm actually reviewing. This has been published on housing more recently, in basically the summer of 2017. And it provides us as practitioners with some of the best resources available on the current legal market. We consider that Quiet Enjoyment remains one of the best short books in this area of welfare law since the first edition appeared in the 1980s. And I've been practicing for rather a large number of years now, and I'm well aware of how the Legal Action Group, from the time that I was certainly in pupillage and studying to practicing, that the Legal Action Group have given us a tremendous amount of assistance. They made my life a lot easier, and I know that of my colleagues, so a big thank you to all of you. The work was previously known as Quiet Enjoyment, Arden and Partington's Guide to Remedies for Harassment and Illegal Eviction, which of course has grown from that, because of course there have been some pretty bad cases. Now Arden, together with Robert Brown and Sam Madge-Wyld, have written an expanded 8th edition to review a wide range of problems concerning what are now statutorily recognised as rogue landlords, as well as harassment, illegal eviction and criminal trespass. The content includes tenancy deposits, very helpful that one, because I've been a victim of that years ago. I think a lot of people have. Licensing, another area of interest legally in terms of any discussion about the construction of an agreement. Banning orders and a range of other activities which interfere with an occupier's enjoyment of his or her home. Now, the book's been produced by Lag and Arden with the busy advisor in mind. It's both practical and easy to navigate, so I think advisors can steer clients to it as an accessible publication for non-lawyers. And I say that a little bit guardedly, because obviously there's a lot of legal content here, but I do think it's of help, and that's the purpose, which is what LAG is about, the Access to Justice charity. It's making people have the access, or giving people the access to justice when it's being effectively taken away by cuts in legal aid. For whatever purposes, whatever reasons, the fact is we're where we are, and we need things like this to assist us. So what we've got here is 9 chapters which outline occupiers' rights and explain the different civil, criminal court procedures and all the other remedies available. I think that's very helpful. The edition's up to date to include new measures in the Housing and Planning Act 2016. There's a new chapter on safety measures including gas, fire, electricity, smoke alarms, and the consequences if landlords fail to secure them. And I have to say, at the time of writing, we've had the Grenfell Tower tragedy, and we don't know the outcome yet of that, but again, you can see that this is an issue which is something that's on everybody's minds even now. Just as a reminder, the contents include the following, which I hope will be of assistance depending on what you might be looking for. Unlawful eviction, harassment, criminal trespass, tenancy deposits, licensing of landlords and agents. An interesting area in the London boroughs, perhaps, with the licensing because of lists. In some boroughs, I hasten to add. Banning orders on database of rogue landlords, again very important. Additional duties include safety, energy efficiency and retaliatory eviction, civil proceedings and criminal proceedings. And the main text, of course, is supported by 3 very useful appendices, including an updated section on damages, cases and extracts from all the relevant legislation. I think the case law, again, is very helpful. Clearly the people you will know who've been part of the writing team will have a very good understanding of the most important of the new case law which is emerging. And this particular LAG title remains an essential handbook for housing lawyers and advisors acting for tenants, and has a wide readership in the era of public legal education, where so many parties are now unrepresented. It's not going to change, and that's why these books are so helpful. Let me conclude by saying that we are sure that local government tenancy relations officers, interesting new term for them, but you know what we're talking about, they're the welfare people, and housing and legal departments also find it an invaluable guide to dealing with landlords who rent out unsafe or substandard accommodation. Still too many of them, they're not being dealt with properly. Hopefully they might be in the future, but I won't hold my breath. The sad fact of life is there are just too many rogue landlords out there, and very little is done to stop their behaviour. Obviously the courts can do certain things, but it's much bigger than just going in front of a judge. Quiet enjoyment then goes some way to explain where you stand as an occupier until the issue of housing gets to the top of the political agenda. And of course there's some way to go yet. A big thank you anyway to Andrew Arden, all the people involved, and LAG for this of the three. All three books are here at once, but this is the second one I'm looking at. The law's predominantly is stated at 30th of April 2017. Let's look at Quiet Enjoyment very quickly again. There's the front and there's the back. Probably can't see too much because of the way it's written, but there's a lot of blurb in there. It's opening in the middle. This is about harassment. I get a lot of cases involving harassment. Chapter 2 on Quiet Enjoyment, it's actually covering that area. You can see it's got a lot of the statutory coverage, and it's also got a lot of case law as well. And you can see breaches of injunction and what happens there, and all the difficulties. Then criminal trespass 3 and so on. I will say one thing as a final point. These rogue landlords try it on. They know how far they can go sometimes. They also know that the people they're dealing with are sometimes very vulnerable. And that's one of the reasons why I think books like this are so important, because at least it helps us try to sort out some of the actually quite serious problems that can develop in this area. Thank you anyway to everybody concerned for this excellent book. Bye-bye.